Marcus Chen adjusted his formal diplomatic jacket one more time as his shuttle descended toward the Valoran Palace. Through the viewport, he could see the magnificent structure rising from the planet's surface like a mountain made of glass and starlight. The palace caught the light of the system's 3 moons, making it glow with soft rainbow colors. "First time meeting the Queen?" his pilot asked, a friendly woman named Sarah from the human embassy. "First time," Marcus admitted. "I've met with Valoran diplomats before, but never royalty. I'm a bit nervous." Sarah laughed. "Don't be. I've flown dozens of ambassadors here. The Valorans are formal, but they're fair. Just remember to bow with your right hand over your heart. And whatever you do, don't refuse any food they offer. It's considered very rude." Marcus nodded, mentally reviewing everything he'd learned about Valoran culture over the past 3 months. He'd been studying hard since receiving the Queen's invitation to a private dinner. Such invitations were rare. In the 5 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, only a handful of humans had dined with Queen Silithara. The shuttle landed on a platform that seemed to be made of solid crystal. As Marcus stepped out, he was greeted by a Valoran official. The alien was tall, nearly 7 feet, with scales that shimmered between blue and green. Like all Valorans, she had 4 arms, currently folded in a pattern that Marcus recognized as a formal greeting. "Ambassador Chen," the official said in perfect English. "I am Keeper Mirana. The Queen awaits you in the Moonlight Chamber. Please, follow me." Marcus followed her through corridors that seemed carved from precious gems. Everywhere he looked, light danced and reflected, creating patterns that were almost hypnotic. Other Valorans moved through the palace, some with scales of deep purple, others with bright gold patterns. All stopped to watch the human pass by with curious eyes. "Are humans always so small?" he heard one whisper. "Hush," another replied. "The Queen honors him with her invitation." The Moonlight Chamber was at the top of a tall spire. When the doors opened, Marcus caught his breath. The entire room was transparent, offering a view of the planet below and the stars above. In the center, a low table held dozens of dishes, each one releasing delicate scents into the air. And standing by the table was Queen Silithara herself. She was magnificent. Her scales were a deep royal purple, edged with silver that caught the moonlight. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Her 4 arms were adorned with simple but elegant bracelets. Her face was narrow and graceful, with large eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. Marcus immediately bowed, right hand over his heart, exactly as Sarah had instructed. "Ambassador Chen," the Queen said, her voice like music. "The honor is entirely mine, Your Majesty," Marcus replied, straightening up. The Queen gestured to cushions beside the table. "Come, sit. Let us share food and conversation. I have been curious about your species since you first arrived in our sector of space." The dinner was wonderful. The Valoran dishes were mostly plant-based, with flavors that Marcus had never experienced before. Some were sweet like honey. Others had a pleasant sourness that reminded him of citrus. The Queen asked him many questions about Earth, about human culture, about his work as an ambassador. "Tell me," she said as they finished the main courses, "what made you choose this path? Why did you want to speak for your species among the stars?" Marcus thought for a moment. "When I was young, my family traveled a lot. I learned that people who seem very different often want the same basic things: safety, happiness, family, purpose. I thought if I could help humans and aliens understand each other, I could make the universe a little smaller, a little friendlier." The Queen's scales brightened slightly, a sign of approval. "A noble goal. Tell me about your family." They talked for another hour. Marcus shared stories about his daughter, now grown and working as a teacher on Earth. The Queen spoke briefly of her own children, though Marcus noticed she grew quieter when mentioning her youngest. As the evening wound down, servants began clearing the dishes. Marcus expected to be escorted back to his shuttle soon. Instead, the Queen dismissed all the servants with a wave of one hand. "Leave us," she commanded. "All of you. I wish to speak with the ambassador alone." The servants bowed and filed out silently. Keeper Marana was the last to leave, giving Marcus a look he couldn't quite interpret before the doors closed behind her. The Queen stood and walked to one of the transparent walls, gazing out at the stars. Marcus waited, uncertain what was happening. "Your Majesty?" he ventured. "Is something wrong?" Queen Silithara turned to face him. Her expression was difficult to read, but her scales had shifted to a darker shade. She walked to the chamber doors and touched a panel beside them. Marcus heard a soft click. She had locked the doors. "You will stay here tonight, human," the Queen said, her voice carrying an authority that made it clear this was not a request. Marcus's mind raced. What was happening? Had he offended her somehow? Was this a test? A threat? "Your Majesty," he said carefully, keeping his voice calm and respectful. "I don't understand. Have I done something to upset you?" The Queen walked to a corner of the large chamber and settled onto a cushioned bench. Her forearms folded in a complex pattern, and her large eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him feel like a specimen under examination. "You have done nothing wrong, Ambassador Chen," she said quietly. "But there are traditions older than starships. There are rules that even queens must follow when they face the impossible." She gestured to the room around them. "This chamber is now sealed. Neither of us will leave until dawn. What happens in these hours may determine the fate of more than you know." Marcus stood frozen, his diplomatic training telling him to stay calm while his instincts screamed confusion. The Queen simply watched him, waiting, as the three moons continued their slow dance across the alien sky. The longest night of Marcus Chen's life had just begun. The palace chamber felt enormous in the silence. Marcus stood near the curved window, watching three moons cast silver light across the crystalline walls. Behind him, Queen Silithara remained in the corner, her forearms folded in a pattern that seemed important in Valoran culture. "Your Majesty," Marcus began carefully, "I respect your traditions, but my team will worry if I don't return to the embassy." The Queen's scales shimmered as she shifted position. "They have been informed you are my guest. Nothing more." "A guest who cannot leave," Marcus said gently. He wasn't angry, just confused. In his 5 years as a cultural ambassador, he'd learned that confusion usually meant he was missing something important about alien customs. Queen Silithara's large eyes studied him. They were like opals, changing color with her emotions. Right now, they shifted between deep blue and worried gray. "Tell me, human, what do you know of Valoran royal traditions?" Marcus thought carefully. "I know your people value honor above all else. I know your queens have ruled wisely for 10,000 years. I know you consider honesty the highest virtue." "Then I will be honest with you," the Queen said quietly. She moved to a low table and gestured for Marcus to sit across from her. "But first, answer me. Do humans love their children?" The question surprised Marcus. "Of course we do. More than anything in the universe. Even if those children are not of your blood?" "Even then," Marcus replied. "We have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. We believe all children deserve protection and care." Something changed in the Queen's expression. Her scales brightened slightly, and her eyes settled into a warm amber color. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small holographic device. With a tap of one elegant finger, an image appeared between them. A young Valoran child floated in the projection. She had smaller scales than the Queen, still showing the rainbow patterns of youth. She was sleeping, surrounded by medical equipment. "My youngest daughter," Queen Silithara said softly. "Princess Kyra. She is only 40 years old." Marcus knew that meant the princess was still a child by Valoran standards. Their species lived for centuries, aging slowly and gracefully. She's beautiful, Marcus said honestly. She is dying. The words hung in the air like stones. Marcus felt his heart sink. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. What happened? The Queen's voice remained steady, but Marcus could hear the pain beneath it. 3 months ago, Kyra began to feel weak. She stopped playing with her siblings. She could not attend her lessons. Our finest doctors examined her. They found her body was slowly failing, but they could not determine why. And she manipulated the hologram, showing medical charts that Marcus couldn't fully understand. The Valoran writing scrolled past, but he could see the declining graphs clearly enough. We tried every treatment known to our science. The Queen continued. We brought specialists from across our empire. We even consulted the ancient healers who used the old methods. Nothing worked. Each day, she grows weaker. Your Majesty, I don't understand. Marcus said carefully. Why tell me this? Why lock me in here? Queen Silithara stood and walked to the window. Her tall form was silhouetted against the moonlight. There is an old Valoran tradition. From the time before we had starships, when a ruler faced an impossible problem, a drought that would not end, a plague with no cure, an enemy that could not be defeated, they would invoke the right of strangers' counsel. She turned back to face him. The ruler would bring a stranger into a sealed room and spend one night with them. Not a friend, not an advisor, a complete stranger. Someone with different eyes, different thoughts, different knowledge. Marcus began to understand. Because sometimes, the answer comes from an unexpected place. Exactly, the Queen said. In the old stories, a farmer once solved a problem that stumped the greatest generals. A child once saw what the wisest scholars could not. The tradition teaches us that wisdom can come from anywhere. But I'm not a doctor, Marcus protested. I'm just a cultural ambassador. I study traditions and languages, not medicine. You are human, Queen Silithara said simply. Your species is new to the galactic community. Your medicine developed differently from ours. Your science took different paths. Perhaps you will see something we cannot. She returned to the table and sat down heavily. For the first time, Marcus saw past the powerful queen to the frightened mother beneath. Her 4 hands clasped together, and her scales had faded to a dull gray. I have already lost 1 child to the red fever 20 years ago, she whispered. I cannot lose Kyra too, but I do not know what else to try. So I invoke the old ways. I lock the door. I ask a stranger for help. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He thought of his own daughter back on Earth, now grown and studying to be a teacher. He thought of how helpless he'd felt whenever she'd been sick as a child, even with simple colds. Show me everything, Marcus said firmly. Every test result, every treatment you've tried, every symptom. I'll look at it all with fresh eyes. The Queen's scales rippled with surprise. You are not angry that I trapped you here? You do not demand to leave? A child is sick, Marcus said simply. Nothing else matters right now. If there's even the smallest chance I can help, then this is exactly where I need to be. For the first time since he'd entered the chamber, Queen Silithara smiled. It was a small, fragile smile, but genuine. Perhaps the old tradition chose wisely tonight. She activated several holographic displays around the room, filling the air with medical data. Then let us begin. Marcus, Chen. Let us find what my people have missed. The night's real work had just started. The holographic medical displays floated in the air like glowing ghosts, filling the moonlight chamber with soft blue light. Marcus stood before them, his eyes scanning charts and diagrams that looked both familiar and completely alien at the same time. Queen Silithara sat nearby, manipulating the displays with graceful movements of her 4 hands. Each gesture brought up new information: blood work analyses, brain scans, cellular examinations. The data was written in Valoran script, but the Queen had activated a translation system that converted the key terms into English. These readings were taken yesterday, the Queen explained, highlighting a particular chart. You can see here how her energy levels continue to drop. Marcus leaned closer, studying the graph. It showed a steady decline over 3 months, like a ball rolling slowly down a hill. And your doctors have no idea what's causing it? None, the Queen said, her voice heavy with frustration. They have tested for every disease in our medical database. They have examined her genetics, her environment, her diet. Everything appears normal, yet she grows weaker each day. Marcus rubbed his eyes. He'd been looking at the data for over an hour now, and his initial confidence was beginning to fade. He wasn't a doctor. He was a cultural ambassador who happened to have taken basic biology classes in college 20 years ago. What made him think he could solve what Valoran medical experts couldn't? Tell me about her symptoms, Marcus said, deciding to start with basics. Not the test results, just what you observe. What does Kyra experience? The Queen's scales softened to a lighter shade as she thought about her daughter. She is tired all the time. She used to run through the palace gardens, climbing the crystal trees with her siblings. Now she can barely walk to the dining hall. Her scales have lost their shine. She says her bones ache. Her bones ache, Marcus repeated, something tickling at the back of his mind. Does she have any other physical symptoms? Changes in her appetite? Muscle weakness? Yes, muscle weakness, the Queen confirmed. And she craves strange foods. Last week, she asked for chalstone powder mixed into her water. We thought she was simply being a difficult child. Marcus froze. Chalstone powder? What is that? Queen Silithara waved a hand, and a new hologram appeared, a rough, gray rock that looked similar to limestone on Earth. A common mineral found throughout our planet. Some young Valorans go through phases of eating it, though we usually discourage the habit. It has no nutritional value. 4. PT. No nutritional value, Marcus whispered. His heart began beating faster. Your Majesty, can you show me what Kyra normally eats? Her typical diet? The Queen looked puzzled but complied. She brought up holographic images of various Valoran foods. Fruits that looked like blue crystals, vegetables with purple leaves, grains that shimmered like pearls. Marcus studied each one carefully. These are all native to Valora? He asked. Of course. We eat what our planet provides. Marcus began pacing, his mind racing. And have you always lived here? I mean, Valorans as a species evolved on this planet? Yes, the Queen said, standing up. Her scales rippled with confusion. Why do you ask these questions? What does our planet have to do with Kyra's illness? Maybe everything, Marcus said excitedly. He turned to face her. Your Majesty, I need to ask you something that might sound strange. Has your family moved recently? Changed residences? Started living in a different part of the palace? The Queen's eyes widened slightly. Yes. 6 months ago, we moved to the North Tower. The old royal chambers were being renovated. How did you know? Quote, I didn't know. I guessed. Marcus pulled up the holographic display showing Kyra's declining health. Look at this timeline. When did you say Kyra first got sick? Oh, 3 months ago. And when did you move to the North Tower? 6 months ago. The Queen stared at the timeline, her forehands trembling slightly. You think the tower made her sick? But that's impossible. It's been part of the palace for 1,000 years. Not the tower itself, Marcus said. He began searching through the medical data, looking for specific tests. Tell me, did your doctors check Kyra's mineral levels? Things like calcium, magnesium, iron? The Queen manipulated the displays, bringing up a complex analysis. They checked everything, all within normal ranges for a young Valoran. Normal for a Valoran, Marcus emphasized. But Your Majesty, that's the problem. What if normal isn't enough? He sat down across from her, trying to organize his thoughts. On Earth, we have a condition called rickets. It happens when children don't get enough vitamin D or calcium. Their bones become weak. They feel tired all the time. They experience muscle pain. The Queen leaned forward. This sounds like Kyra's symptoms. Exactly. But here's the thing. Rickets isn't caused by a disease. It's caused by a deficiency. The body isn't getting something it needs. Marcus pointed to the chalstone mineral still displayed in the hologram. Kyra craves that powder because her body is trying to tell her something. She needs minerals that she's not getting from her food. But the tests showed her mineral levels were normal, the Queen protested. Normal based on what Valorans typically have, Marcus explained. But what if the North Tower is different somehow? What if the light is different there? Or the air composition? Or something else environmental? What if living there changed what her body needs? Armuntar. Queen Silithera was silent for a long moment. Her scales shifted through several colors. Doubt, hope, fear, all mixing together. Even if you're correct, our doctors would have thought of this. They are the finest medical minds in the Empire. Maybe, Marcus said gently. But sometimes, being an expert can make you miss simple answers. You look for complex diseases because that's what you're trained to find. You don't consider that maybe the solution is something basic. He stood and walked to the holographic display of chalstone. Your Majesty, that mineral Kyra craves. Can you show me its chemical composition? The Queen complied, and a new display appeared showing the molecular structure. Marcus studied it carefully, comparing it mentally to what he knew about human nutritional needs. There, he said, pointing to a cluster of elements. Do you see that? That mineral is rich in calcium carbonate and magnesium. Exactly what human children need, for strong bones and healthy muscles. But Kyra is not human, the Queen said. No. But all carbon-based life forms have certain basic needs, Marcus replied. Maybe Valorans and humans are more similar than anyone realized. Maybe your species needs more of these minerals during growth years, and maybe the North Tower, for whatever reason, isn't providing the right environment for her body to process what she's getting from food. The Queen stood very still. Her scales had turned a bright, hopeful gold. You're saying the solution might be simple mineral supplements? Not advanced medicine or complex treatments, but something as basic as adding minerals to her diet? I'm saying it's a possibility worth exploring, Marcus said carefully. I could be completely wrong, but the symptoms match, the timeline matches, and her craving for that chalstone powder makes sense if her body is desperately seeking what it lacks. Queen Silithara looked at him with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. In all these months, with all our technology and expertise, no one suggested this. No one thought to simply give her more minerals. Sometimes the simplest answer is the hardest to see, Marcus said softly. The Queen walked to the window, gazing out at the 3 moons. If you are right, human, you will have saved my daughter's life, with nothing more than common sense and a fresh perspective. If I'm right, Marcus cautioned. We need to test this theory first. The Queen turned back to him, and for the first time that night, she truly smiled. Then, let us test it. Together. Queen Silithara moved swiftly to the communications panel on the wall. Her 4 hands danced across the controls with practiced precision. Within moments, a holographic image of a Valoran doctor appeared in the air, an elderly male with deep green scales and kind eyes. Your Majesty, the doctor said, bowing his head. It is very late. Is everything? Dr. Thalen, the Queen interrupted. I need you to run a test immediately. I want you to take tissue samples from Princess Kyra and expose them to calcium carbonate and magnesium compounds. Use the same molecular structure found in chalstone mineral. The doctor's eyes widened in confusion. Your Majesty, we've already tested for mineral deficiencies. The princess's levels are, we know. Within normal range, yes, the Queen said firmly. But I want you to test what happens when those levels are increased significantly above normal. I want to see if her cells respond differently. Dr. Thalen hesitated, clearly puzzled. This is unconventional. May I ask what prompted this idea? The Queen glanced at Marcus. I am following the old wisdom, Doctor. I am listening to a stranger's counsel. Please, conduct the test now. I will remain here until you have results. The doctor bowed again. As you command, Your Majesty. I will work as quickly as possible. The hologram faded. The Queen turned back to Marcus, her scales showing a mixture of hope and anxiety. Now we wait. Dr. Thalen is very thorough. He will not rush the test just to please me. That's good, Marcus said. We want accurate results, not fast ones. The Queen nodded and settled back onto her cushioned bench. Tell me, Marcus Chen, do you have children? A daughter, Marcus replied, sitting across from her. Emily. She's 26 now, teaching literature at a university on Earth. You must miss her, being so far from home. Every day, Marcus admitted. But she understands. She's proud of the work I do out here among the stars. The Queen's scales softened to a warm amber color. My eldest daughter, Saria, chose to become a starship captain rather than stay in the palace. At first, I was hurt. I thought she was rejecting her heritage, but I have come to understand that letting our children find their own paths is perhaps the greatest gift we can give them. Even when it scares us, Marcus added. Especially then. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the moons move across the sky. Marcus found it strange how natural this felt sitting with an alien queen in a locked chamber, waiting to see if his wild theory might save a child's life. May I ask you something? Marcus said after a time. Of course. Why me? You could have consulted with human doctors, medical experts. Why bring a simple cultural ambassador into this? The Queen considered the question carefully. Because experts sometimes cannot see past their expertise. They know so much that they forget to think simply. You came to this problem with fresh eyes and an open mind. That is sometimes more valuable than all the knowledge in the galaxy. Before Marcus could respond, the communication panel chimed. Dr. Thalen's image appeared again, but this time his expression was completely different. His eyes were wide with excitement, his scales bright with energy. Your Majesty, he said breathlessly, the results are. When we exposed the princess's tissue samples to elevated levels of calcium and magnesium, the cells began to regenerate. The cellular energy production increased by 47%. The damaged cellular structures started repairing themselves. The Queen stood so quickly that her robes swirled around her. You're certain? Completely certain. We ran the test 3 times to be sure. Your Majesty, this is remarkable. All this time, Princess Kyra hasn't been sick in the traditional sense. Her body has simply been starving for minerals it couldn't extract properly from regular food. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. He'd been right. The simple answer had been the correct one. Prepare a treatment protocol immediately, the Queen commanded. But use caution. Start with small doses and monitor her carefully. Your Majesty, Dr. Thalen said carefully, with respect, I believe we should act more quickly. The princess is very weak. If this treatment works as the tests suggest, we should begin full dosing immediately. The Queen looked at Marcus. What do you think? Marcus was surprised to be asked. I'm not a doctor, Your Majesty. But if I were you, I'd want to be cautious. We know the minerals help her cells, in a laboratory setting. We don't know yet how her whole body will respond. Starting slow seems wise. The Queen nodded. Dr. Thalen, begin with conservative doses. Monitor Princess Kyra every hour. If she shows positive response, you may gradually increase the treatment. The doctor bowed. As you wish, Your Majesty. And Dr. Thalen, the Queen added, her voice softening, bring Kyra to the moonlight chamber. I wish to be with her when she receives the treatment. Your Majesty. The chamber is sealed for the rite of... I know very well what rite I invoked, the Queen said, and the rite has served its purpose. The stranger has given his counsel. Now unseal the doors and bring me my daughter. Marcus heard the soft click of the locks releasing. He hadn't even noticed the first hints of dawn beginning to color the horizon. Within minutes, Dr. Thalen arrived with Princess Kyra. The young Valoran was carried on a floating medical bed, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Even in the soft morning light, Marcus could see how pale her scales were, how fragile she looked. The Queen rushed to her daughter's side, taking one small hand in two of her own larger ones. My brave girl, she whispered. We are going to make you better now. Kyra's eyes opened slightly. Mother? Why am I in the moonlight chamber? Because this is where miracles happen, the Queen said, glancing at Marcus with gratitude in her eyes. Dr. Thalen prepared the mineral supplement, a simple liquid that glowed faintly blue. Princess, you need to drink this. It may taste strange, but I promise it will help you feel better. Kyra struggled to sit up, and the Queen gently supported her. The young princess took the cup in trembling hands and drank slowly. She made a face. It tastes like chalstone. Janru. That's because it contains similar minerals, Dr. Thalen explained kindly. Your body has been craving these. We should have listened to you sooner. They waited. The monitoring equipment beeped steadily, showing Kyra's vital signs. Marcus stood to the side, feeling like an intruder in this intimate family moment, yet unable to look away. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Mother, Kyra said suddenly. My bones don't hurt as much. The Queen's scales flashed brilliant gold. Truly, truly. The young princess sat up straighter. Without help this time. I feel lighter, like a weight has been lifted. Dr. Thalen checked his monitors, his expression growing more amazed by the second. Her cellular energy levels are rising. Blood flow is improving. Blood. This is working faster than the tissue tests predicted. The Queen pulled her daughter into a gentle embrace, careful not to disturb the medical equipment. Tears rare for Valorans began to flow down her face, sparkling like diamonds in the dawn light. Thank you, she whispered, looking at Marcus over her daughter's head. Thank you for seeing what we could not. Marcus felt his own eyes growing wet. I'm just glad I could help. Princess Kyra looked at him curiously. Are you the human? My mother? Locked in here all night? Despite everything, Marcus laughed. Yes, that's me. Did she scare you? A little bit, Marcus admitted. Kyra smiled a weak smile, but genuine. But she's only scary because she loves us so much. The Queen laughed through her tears, hugging her daughter closer. Outside the transparent walls, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The long night was over, and with the dawn came hope. 3 weeks had passed since that transformative night in the moonlight chamber. Marcus stood in the grand assembly hall of the Valoran Palace, watching as thousands of beings from across the galaxy took their seats. The hall was magnificent, soaring crystal columns reached toward a domed ceiling that showed the real sky above, as if the building itself wanted to touch the stars. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber. Marcus recognized the tall, bird-like Kirith delegates, the small but brilliant Nexian scientists with their glowing skin, and the massive Thornback ambassadors who had to sit in specially reinforced seats. At the center of it all sat Queen Silithera on her throne, regal and radiant. And beside her, looking healthy and energetic, sat Princess Kyra. The young Valoran's scales had regained their rainbow shine. Her eyes were bright and alert. She fidgeted in her seat with the restless energy of a child who'd been forced to sit still for too long, a wonderful sign of recovery that made Marcus smile every time he saw it. "They're ready to begin," Sarah whispered beside him. She'd flown in from the human embassy specifically for this gathering. "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "I'm just a cultural ambassador. I'm not used to speaking before the entire Galactic Council." "Well, get used to it." Sarah grinned. "You're famous now. The human who saved the Valoran princess with common sense." The chamber fell silent as Queen Silithara stood. Her forearms spread wide in a gesture of welcome that every species in the room understood. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice amplified to reach every corner of the vast hall. "Thank you for answering my invitation. I have called you here today to witness the beginning of something extraordinary." She gestured to Princess Kyra, who stood and waved shyly at the crowd. A warm murmur of approval rippled through the assembly. "Many of you heard that my youngest daughter fell gravely ill. What you may not know is that for 3 months, the finest medical minds in the Valoran Empire could not determine what was wrong with her. Our technology, our expertise, our centuries of accumulated knowledge, all of it failed to find the answer." The Queen paused, letting her words sink in. The answer came instead from an unlikely source: a human. A species that has been part of our galactic community for barely 5 years. "Ambassador Marcus Chen, please join me." Marcus felt his heart hammering as he walked toward the throne. Every eye in the chamber followed him. He bowed to the Queen with his right hand over his heart, exactly as he'd done on that fateful night. "Ambassador Chen discovered what we had missed," the Queen continued. "Not through advanced technology or superior medical training, but through simple observation and fresh perspective. He recognized that my daughter was suffering from a severe mineral deficiency, something so basic that our doctors had overlooked it while searching for complex diseases." She turned to address the assembly directly. "This experience has taught me a profound lesson. We have grown so advanced, so specialized, that we sometimes forget the simple truths. We have divided knowledge into such narrow categories that we can no longer see the connections between them." Dr. Thalen stood from his seat among the Valoran delegation. "Please, Doctor." The elderly Valoran stepped forward, his scales showing humble colors. "I have been a physician for 200 years. I have studied at the finest medical academies in the Empire. Yet I failed Princess Kyra because I was looking in the wrong direction. I was searching for diseases I had learned about, not considering possibilities outside my training." He turned to Marcus and bowed deeply. "This human reminded me that medicine is not just about what we know. It's about being willing to learn, to question, to see each patient as a unique puzzle. I am grateful for his wisdom, and I am humbled by my own oversight." A Nexian scientist stood up, her skin glowing brighter with excitement. "This is precisely why we need greater cooperation between species. Human medicine, developed independently from ours. Their solutions are different. Their perspectives are unique. Imagine what we could accomplish if we truly shared knowledge across all species." "That is exactly what I propose," Queen Silithara announced. Her scales flashed with brilliant gold light. "I am establishing the Galactic Institute of Collaborative Medicine, to be built here on Valora. It will be a place where doctors, scientists, and healers from all species work together, learning from each other's unique approaches." The chamber erupted in excited conversation. The Queen raised one hand for silence. "Furthermore," she continued, "I am proposing a formal alliance between the Valoran Empire and humanity. Not a political alliance based on power or territory, but a partnership based on shared curiosity and the exchange of knowledge." She looked directly at Marcus. The humans have something precious to offer the galaxy. They see problems with unconditioned eyes. They ask questions we have forgotten to ask. They find simple solutions we have overlooked in our complexity. A Thornback ambassador stood, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. Your Majesty, with great respect, humanity is still very new to space travel. They have much to learn from older species. What can they truly teach us? Before the Queen could answer, Princess Kyra spoke up. Her young voice carried surprising strength. They can teach us to remember that being advanced doesn't mean being wise. They can teach us that sometimes the newest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. The Thornback sat down, looking thoughtful. Marcus found his own voice, surprising himself. If I may speak, Your Majesty? The Queen nodded encouragement. I didn't save Princess Kyra alone, Marcus said, addressing the entire assembly. I had access to all the data that Valoran doctors had collected. I stood on the foundation of their hard work. What I offered wasn't superior knowledge, it was just a different angle of looking at the same information. He gestured around the chamber. Every species here has unique strengths. The Kirith understand energy in ways we don't. The Nexians see patterns we miss. The Thornbacks have endurance that amazes us. And yes, maybe humans bring fresh perspectives because we're new. But in 50 years, we'll be just as set in our ways as anyone else, unless we keep learning from each other. A Kirith delegate stood, her feathers ruffling with approval. Well spoken, human. The Kirith Consortium supports this alliance and the establishment of the Medical Institute. One by one, other delegates stood to voice their support. The Nexians, the Thornbacks, even the traditionally isolated Crystalline Collective, indicated their interest in participating. Queen Silithara's scales shimmered with joy. Then, let it be recorded that on this day, a new era of cooperation begins, built not on the foundations of power or fear, but on curiosity, humility, and the simple truth that we are all better together than apart. She walked down from her throne and approached Marcus. To his surprise, she took both his hands in two of hers, a gesture of deep respect in Valoran culture. That night I locked you in the moonlight chamber. I invoked an ancient tradition, she said softly, though her words carried to every corner of the hall. The Rite of Strangers Council teaches us that wisdom can come from unexpected places. But I learned something beyond that tradition. She released his hands and addressed the assembly once more. I learned that sometimes we must trap ourselves in a room with our problems, unable to escape, unable to distract ourselves, forced to truly face what troubles us. And sometimes, the greatest gift is to have someone willing to stay in that locked room with us, even when they could demand to leave. Princess Kyra ran down from the throne and took Marcus's hand. Will you visit me again? She asked, with childlike directness. I want to hear more about Earth, and I want to show you the crystal gardens when I'm strong enough to climb the trees again. Marcus knelt down to her level. I would be honored, Princess. The young Valoran hugged him impulsively, and the entire assembly erupted in applause. The sound echoed off the crystal walls like thunder. A celebration not just of one child's recovery, but of the possibilities that opened when different minds worked together. Later, as Marcus prepared to return to the human embassy, the Queen walked with him to his shuttle. The three moons were rising again, casting their familiar silver light. You know, the Queen said thoughtfully, that night I locked the door. I wasn't entirely following tradition. I was also just a frightened mother, desperate enough to try anything. I know, Marcus said gently. Yet you stayed. You helped. You never made me feel foolish for my desperation. Because it wasn't foolish. It was love. The Queen smiled. The Galactic Institute will need a human co-director. Someone who understands both the value of expertise and the importance of seeing beyond it. Would you consider the position? Marcus looked up at the glowing palace, thinking of Princess Kyra's bright eyes, of Dr. Thalen's humble wisdom, of all the species gathering to share knowledge. "Yes," he said. As his shuttle lifted off, Marcus looked back at the Crystal Palace one last time. He thought about that locked door, and how the greatest discoveries sometimes required being unable to escape a problem, required staying in the room until you found a solution together. The door had opened at dawn, but what it had opened to was so much more than freedom. It had opened to understanding, to partnership, to hope, and to a future where a locked door could become the key to unlocking the galaxy's potential.